Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. So today I'm in Key West, Florida. We're going to be painting that really cute cottage in the background, the yellow one with the green shutters. I'm going to be sipping on my really huge frozen pina colada. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Okay, so for the materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 canvas. You can get this at any of your local craft stores or online, and you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'm going to be using today. For pencils, I'm just using a number 2 pencil from my initial sketch. I will also be using a 1-inch wide bristle brush. I'm going to be using a number 1 round brush, a number 6 round brush, and a number 8 flat synthetic brush. You're also going to need a paper towel, and you'll need a cup of water for washing your brushes. This is for drying your brushes. And we're using acrylic paint. The colors I'm using are titanium white, cobalt blue, Mars black. I'm using like an earl gray. I'm using lemon yellow. I'm using green oxide, burnt umber, and burnt sienna. And of course you can certainly switch up the colors on this one too. But that's all you're going to need for your supplies. So for the first step, what I'm going to be doing is an initial sketch, and I'm going to be painting this as if I'm dead on, but for logistic purposes, I'm kind of off to the side here, but I'm going to be painting it as if I'm dead on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to section my canvas off from the sky to the building to the fence. So the 3 sections I'm going to do, I'm going to start with my fence, and really what I'm just going to be doing is drawing a line across my canvas about a quarter of the way up. So to find the quarter point, just kind of visually go halfway here, and then whatever, you know, and it's just a roundabout area. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then what I'm going to do for the house, I do want to have a little bit of greenery or something on the sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw myself the top of or the peak of the roof, starting about in the center of my canvas, and I'm going to come off to the left and come off to the right. I'm leaving myself a little space over on either side, and then I'm just going to draw myself 2 vertical lines going right down to my fence. And that's all I'm going to do for the sketch. So the next step, we're going to be using your flat bristle blush. That's what happens when you drink pina coladas. Bristle brush. And so you can get that out and get ready for the next step. Okay, so for the next step, I'm going to be painting my sky. I'm going to be using my bristle brush. I'm going to be using cobalt blue and white. I'm going to use them both on my brush at the same time. And if I can, I'm going to try and get that sky to come lighter and lighter as it comes down. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going left to right, kind of like in these long X marks. And the reason why I like to do it this way is because I can get a little bit of maybe wispy clouds in there. As I come down my sky, I'll be picking up more white and less blue, and I'm not going to be washing my brush. So that way it's going to get a nice natural gradient as it comes down my canvas. And I like to paint the edges or the sides of my canvas, so if you want to do the same, feel free to do so. And this way you can have nice light spots and dark spots. And as you can tell, I'm on kind of a busy street here. But I thought this cottage was super cute, so we're going with the flow here in Key West. There's lots of these cute cottages all over the place. They're so picturesque. But this one just really caught my eye, so that's why we're going to be doing this one. And I want to come all the way down to my outline. You can even paint into your outline. Typically acrylic paint is going to be see-through, so you can certainly see that outline right underneath. But I am going to fill in these little sides on the left and right. So again, I'm just kind of using this left to right, almost like an X type brush stroke. It's kind of like long, almost like a figure 8. I do want to have that sky coming down a little bit in through here. So when I get over here, I really don't need to do anything special for my brush stroke, just kind of get it all nice and colored in over here. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Again, I just wanted to have some kind of end to the building, and I don't want to worry about painting the actual buildings that are next to it. So I'm using my creative license here to just kind of put some information over here on the left and right. And then we are going to use this same brush for the next step. So when you get this done, you can just wash and dry your bristle brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so for the next step, I'm using my bristle brush. I'm going to be using my lemon yellow paint, and I'm going to be coloring in the cottage, just a flat color at this point. If you wanted it to be a little bit lighter, like I'm noticing my yellow is a little bit too bright for me, I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. I want it to be nice, soft, and pastel like that. So I just added a little bit of white to it, and this is going to give it a nice, soft pastel look. Don't worry about what's happening at the edges on your roof. We're going to be covering that with the molding and the trim, and same thing with over on the sides. We're going to cover that with a little bit of trim work at the end. So I used my lemon yellow and white as I'm going through here. No special brush strokes. I'm just going left to right because it's easy to do it that way. When you get towards the sides, if you want, you can go vertical. With the white in it, it's going to cover really nice, and you probably won't notice the brush strokes if you do it consistently throughout the entire building. So when you go to the edge, you know, you can go vertical or left to right, whatever works for you. So this step shouldn't take too long. Just going to kind of get this paint on here. Kind of make my edges a little bit clean here. Just got to get this bottom. And then we are going to use this brush once again for the next step. So when you get your entire house covered in, you can wash and dry this brush and get ready for the next step.
Thank you.
All right, so for the next step, what I'm going to do, I want to do a base coat where my fence is going to go. But I want to kind of give it a little bit of an illusion that there's like greenery or grass or something back there behind the fence. So when we put the fence on, we'll have like little peek-throughs of color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using green, brown, and gray. And I'm going to use all 3 colors on my brush at the same time. And I'm just going to kind of paint it in. You could, if you wanted to, just use like 1 color at a time. Maybe I just picked up brown, now I'm just picking up green. I want to bring it all the way up to my house. It doesn't have to have a perfectly straight line because we want to give it the illusion that maybe there's, you know, something back there behind the fence. But I am doing kind of a thin coat so that way it doesn't take too long to dry. And I'm just giving it a really, really earthy color back here. Of course, my big ass drink is going to be in the way here, but that's all right. I'll work around that. So again, I'm just kind of bringing it all the way up to my house. I'm not giving it any special brush stroke because we're going to be putting I need to move my drink. We're going to be putting the fence in front of it. See, look at, I can be two-handed here. But I just want to get some kind of like natural color back here. So that's why I'm using the green, brown, and gray. And then, you know, you could dot it, you could go left to right like I'm going, whatever works for you. And then, again, I am painting the sides, so I just paint them as I go along. And then we're going to be switching brushes for the next step. I'm going to be using my, let's see here, I'm going to use my number 6 brush. So when you get done with this, take a sip of this and get ready with your next brush. All right, so I know I said I wanted to use the number 6 brush for the next step, but I totally changed my mind. So I'm going to be using the number 8 flat brush. So if you need a second to get that, feel free to do so. So what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to be doing the outline of my house, and I'm also going to be doing kind of the blocks or the first layer of the little louver window at the top and then the 2 longer windows. So my colors I'm going to be using are gray and white, and I like the flat brush because it's going to give me like a nice line. I'm going to use the gray and white at the same time on my brush, so that way I'll get some light spots and dark spots. I'm going to try and get this pretty even so it doesn't look like it's slanted like it is right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of mark my top. I do want to kind of see how low this is. So I just kind of make markers every now and again to give myself a nice balance. So I know that these 2 are the same height away from here right now. And I'm just going to kind of quickly make my line. I like to put my pinky or something on the resting against my canvas to stabilize me. So I'm just going to kind of bring this down like this, and of course you can adjust it as you feel fit. Do this one. And again, with that flat brush, you can certainly see that I'm getting like a variety of those colors as I'm doing this one paint stroke. So that way it kind of speeds up your painting a little bit and gives you some cool effects that you don't really have to try for. They just kind of almost accidentally happen. I do want to put a little window in here, so I just want to stand straight here for a second. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'm going to just kind of make myself a little window. You do want to make sure that your paint underneath is nice and dry, so that way you don't run the risk of it kind of streaking through that yellow. But again, I'm just using the gray and white on my brush at the same time. So I have a variety. I'm going to put the little details on it later, but you know, if the paint is a little wet, it's all right. I just noticed mine's a little wet too, but no worries. Happy accidents are always good accidents in the painting world. And then I'm going to do my 2 longer windows. So I do want to try and see if I can get that a little bit straighter. There we go. So again, I'm going to use gray and white. I've got to kind of stand straight on here, so if my head gets in the way, I'm sorry. But what I'm going to do is, I see that the 2 inside corners of the windows are pretty close to this. So I'm going to just kind of make myself a couple of little markers. I'm going to go over to the right. I love making markers. It helps me to make sure I get things kind of in proportion. And I'm bringing them almost all the way down to my fence. So again, this helps me to kind of make sure I get them pretty straight. My line down here is a little crooked, but I can fix that when I do the fence too. So here I go. I've got gray and white on my brush. Now I'm just going to make myself, you know, 2 lines going across, lines going across, lines going down to connect the 2, lines going down to connect the 2, and then I can just use this gray and white to color it in. And again, this is going to be my base coat where I'm going to put my shutters right on top of it. So you can make this, you know, light or dark. It's all kind of a preference on your part, but that this base coat is going to give us something to, it'll make the painting look more 3-dimensional as opposed to 2-dimensional when you have this background behind the shutters. So again, just kind of getting it on here. It doesn't have to be a solid color. This is going to be just our base color underneath. So you'll be able to clean up your edges later. But again, just kind of get it on there. And you can see I have a variety of shades of gray that is naturally happening because I'm using both of these colors at the same time. And then I'm still going to use this brush because I'm still working on these little details. I'm going to do the exterior, there's little white kind of moldings on the outside. I didn't wash my brush, I'm just using that white. And I'm going to do myself a nice clean line on the outside, or as clean as I can get it, just to kind of hide my pencil marks. Kind of get it to go down. We're going to be able to disguise this with palm trees too, so if your line isn't super clean, don't worry about it. And again, I'm just kind of getting that line to go straight down, and if I can get it, you know, on the straighter side, that's great. I feel like I've accomplished that. So we are going to use this brush for the next step as well. So you can wash and dry this flat brush and get ready for the next step. Okay, so what I'm going to do for the next step is I'm going to finish my building. I have to finish my building before I start putting the palm trees in front of it. So I'm using my flat number 8 brush. I'm going to be using white and gray to do like the outlines and stuff. But I also want to make a color for those shutters. So what I'm going to do to make that color is I'm going to be using my green, my blue, and white. And I'm just going to kind of pre-mix myself a color that I feel is representational of that. This is going to take me just a second here so I can get it the way that I want it to. So again, it's green, blue, and white. And you can get it to be, you know, whatever shade of like a pastel kind of green that you want. I'm just kind of looking up there to see if I've got a pretty similar color here. I feel I'm pretty good, maybe a little bit more green. All right. So I feel like I'm pretty good on the match there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do my outline for this first. So I'm just going to wash and dry my brush so I can use the white and the gray to outline this little louvered window up there. So I'm going to start with white, and if I feel like I need to make a little or use a little gray, I will. But for this, I'm just going to kind of do an outline to make it kind of squared off, and then I do see that there's like these little louver windows in between. So I just made white lines going across. So nothing really too technically difficult there. And that's where you can kind of clean up the edges of it if you want to. I also see that there's a little bit of a white molding around my louvered windows right here where my shutters are. So this gives me a good time and good opportunity to kind of straighten up my edges and make sure my windows are pretty even. So I'm just going to take my white and I'm going to come down the side and maybe the bottom, because I know that I'm going to be putting my shutters kind of off to the side. So I'm just putting this white outline on the left and on the bottom. I'm moving for a second here to make sure I've got them kind of even. So I just did white on the left and on the bottom. And now I'm just going to wipe my brush on my paper towel. And I'm going to use my custom color that I made for the shutters. And to me, I'm seeing that they're open at the bottom, so I'm going to just put them at a little bit of an angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw myself a vertical line at the top and maybe keep it a little bit away from the edge of there, and I'm going to hang it over the right just a little bit. So vertical line going that way. I'm going to do the same thing on this window. And then at the bottom, I'm going to do another vertical line, but I'm going to put it off to the right a little bit more. So I'm going to do, and I'm going to put it above my white line that I just made. So a little bit off to the right, stop yourself a little bit, you know, farther that way. Same thing with here, just a little bit, maybe a half of an inch or so more. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the two corners on all sides. So I'm going to connect it there to there, here to here. Of course, I overshot that one a bit, but that's all right. This one to this one, and then this one to this one. And so now I've got them coming off to the side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a whole bunch of vertical lines with my custom color in through here. And you want to make sure that they kind of stay vertical as opposed to diagonal. So if you can concentrate on getting them to go vertical, that's great. And if you can see a little bit of what's behind them, that just adds to the illusion of what they are. These nice little louvered windows. And I do see that there's like a line going down the middle, so you could certainly do a line down the middle. And if you wanted to widen them, if they're too skinny, you can totally utilize that flat brush to give it whatever kind of effect you want. If you want them thicker or thinner, you can really, you know, customize them whatever way you want them to be. I want mine just a little bit thicker so you can't see so much in between. So I'm just really pushing my brush a little bit harder so my line gets a little bit wider, just so you can peek through and see just a little bit of that. I'm going to do the same thing on the other window. I'm just going to come through and I'm going to do a whole bunch of lines. If you really wanted to get technical on it, you would make sure that each shutter has the same number of lines going down it, but I'm just having fun and I'm drinking my pina colada, so I'm not counting lines at this point. So you could kind of do whatever makes you happy. If you're an A-type personality, you might be counting your lines and making sure that you have each one nice and lined up. But again, I'm just kind of using my creative license here and having a little bit of fun. I'm going to do this one going down the center. And again, if you want to, like the one going down the center, I can't really see it, so I think I'm going to add a little bit of gray to my brush, just so I can kind of see that line just a little bit more. So I went into my gray color. And again, this just adds a little bit more dimension to it. And if you needed to, you could put some at the bottom. You know, you could really just continue to modify this to be whatever you imagine it to be. But I'm cool with that. I think it looks nice. So what I'm going to do for the next step, I am going to use this same flat brush. So just wash and dry the flat brush and get ready for your next step. All right, so for the next step, what we're doing is I'm going to be really finishing the house this time. I think I said I was going to finish it the last step, but I changed my mind again. I'm going to be doing stripes, which would represent the siding. So they're going to be all throughout the house. So what I'm going to be using is yellow, white, and gray. And I'm going to use all three of those colors on my brush at the same time. And I'm just going to shoot across a whole bunch of lines going. They might not all be straight, they might not all be evenly spaced in between, but it's going to be fun and painterly, and it's going to hopefully not be too crooked. So here I go. I'm going to just start at the top, and I'm really just using all three of those colors, and I'm making myself a whole bunch of lines going across. I'm not even concentrating on whether or not they're equally spaced. I just want to kind of give it the illusion. And because I'm using all three colors on my brush at the same time, it's going to pick up hints of shadows and stuff like that. Of course, I just smeared my finger in that, but that's okay. We'll cover that with a palm tree. Or a line like I just did. And again, you're going to have a whole bunch of palm trees over this, so that's going to be able to cover any areas that you might not like. But I'm trying to get them pretty straight. I realize I probably should have more on here, but I'm just having fun, so I'm not really concentrating on its technical accuracy here. But I am trying to keep it straight, so that way, or straight-ish. So that way when you're looking at it, it's not like we're looking at it on an angle. All right. So that's all I'm going to do for that step. And then the next step, I'm going to start on my palm tree. So I'm going to be using that number 6 round brush. So you can put the flat one away, get the round one out, and get ready for the next step. All right, so for the next step, I'm going to be doing my tree trunks for my palm trees. I'm going to be using my number 6 round brush. I'm going to be using raw umber, white, and gray. And I'm going to use all 3 colors at once on my brush. And I'm just putting the trunks in place. And I'm going to be putting some behind the house and some in front of the house. So really these are going to be acting as, you know, like place markers for where the tops of my trees are going to go. So I'm going to just kind of, I'm going to watch that kind of, but really I'm just going to use my creative license here. So I definitely want one maybe somewhere in here. And I am concentrating on kind of, I also need the tops of the trees to be evident too. So I think I'm going to have maybe 1 or 2 over here. And by using the 3 colors on your brush at the same time, it's going to provide a really cool effect with multiple colors in your trunk. We could sit here and do a lot more detail to them, but this gives you a quick effect where you've got the multiple colors already there without really trying. I had a little bit too much paint on my brush there. So those are going to be my ones up at the top. I'll have like little ones shooting off here too, but those are going to be my main trees. And then I want a couple coming in front of the house. So when I do it, I'm still going to be using my brown, gray, and white on my brush. I'm going to be making sure, I know my fence is coming up to here, so I'm just going to have a couple of trunks maybe coming in through here. They can come in different directions. These are just going to be low-lying ones that really are just going to be a fun filler in front of the house. I've got one coming up in through here, and if you can't see it, you definitely need to just kind of modify that color. You can have, you know, multiple ones coming. You can have short ones and tall ones, and you know, whatever tickles your fancy. But I'm definitely gonna, you know, represent these with quite a few. I'm even gonna put some, you know, over in through here, and maybe I'll put, you know, I got a nice one over here that I'll put. And I think that's, maybe I'll do a small one into here. And that's all I'm going to do for my tree trunks. So when you have enough on there, and again, you could spread them out differently if you want, but I know that I don't want to hide my house too much, but I still want to see, you know, some down here. So we are going to be tackling the fence next, and I'm going to be using this number 6 round brush for that. So when you get done, you're going to wash and dry that brush and get ready for the next step. Okay, so for the next step, I'm going to be doing the fence. I'm using my number 6 round brush. I'm going to be using white paint. I do want this to kind of look straight. So what I'm going to do is there's actually railings behind those posts. So I'm going to use that to straighten this out. And how I'm going to do that, I'm going to do 2 railings behind. I think there might be 3, but I'm going to use 2. I'm going to, and I know one is kind of close to the top, so I'm going to make a marker of maybe, you know, 1/2 inch or so below my line here. I'm going to use my paintbrush as my ruler, actually, and then I can make 2, but it doesn't, you could do 1 or 2 at a time, doesn't matter. So I'm going to use my paintbrush as my ruler. I'm going to say, okay, this one comes to here. I go over to the other side of my canvas and make myself a mark where that one is. I do the same thing for my bottom one. Make a mark. Come over to this side. Make a mark in the same spot, and now I'm going to connect them with a white line. So I'm just going to go quick. I go fast, and I just will connect them. I keep my eye on the prize, which is the other dot. So I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to keep my eye on that prize, which is the other dot, and just connect the two. Doesn't have to be super straight. Again, we're using our creative license here. So again, I'm going to use this one. Just keep my eye on the prize, which is the other dot. Now that I've got them in place, I can sit here and make them thicker if I want. But again, these are just going to be the posts, or the railings behind the fence. My straw's in my way. But I do want them to be a little bit on the thicker side so you'll be able to see it. So again, just using some white paint, thickening up this line. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom because you want them to kind of be the same thickness. Maybe, again, they don't have to be perfect, but if you want them to kind of look like they were built at the same time, just kind of give them the same thickness or close to it. And then I do want the tops of the posts to kind of look like they're picket fences, so they're going to have like little triangles. But I'm not going to. I'm going to do that part second. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to make a whole bunch of vertical lines. I'm just going to use my white paint. You can have them close together. I want mine to be close together. So I'm pushing my brush pretty hard so that way I have kind of a wide line and it's kind of narrow between the posts. I'm using a good amount of paint too, so that way I can carry it pretty far without having to reload my brush. And I'm trying to keep them pretty vertical. I don't want to show, I don't want a huge space in between them because I don't see a huge space in between them. So I want to keep it, kind of authentic to what I'm looking at in front of me. But I do want to try and keep them nice and straight up and down. So I'm concentrating on, doing that, even though I'm looking at it straight on and they look a little crooked. So I'm gonna stand right in front for a moment here, just so I can re-straighten them. I guess we could just call it a weathered beach fence if it doesn't get if it's not super straight, right? So that helped me. I caught myself early. I'm re-straightening them. It's difficult when you're painting from the side because they look straight. And I suppose you could always use a ruler, to get yourself even straighter lines. But you have areas like the edges of your canvas that you can totally use as a guide as you go along. That will help you to just keep it nice and straight. Just keep looking at those reference points, and that will help you to keep those lines going pretty straight up and down. And again, I'm using a good amount of paint so that way I can carry it pretty far. And if you have some of your posts thicker or thinner than others, it's all right. Just drink more and you won't care if they're straight or not. And hopefully by the time I get these two to come together, I'll have spaced them kind of enough so, I think I did, space them good enough so it doesn't look like awkward. Here we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go at the top of each one and make a little triangle. So just a little peak to my picket fence. So this part, takes a minute to do. but I'm just kind of getting the little points on the picket fence. And this is just something that I like because it's going to give it, you know, again, that authenticity. This one looks a little big. Maybe that's going to get hidden by parts of the palm tree. All right, and my fence gets a little taller to the right, but that's okay. So I am going to be using this number 6 brush for the next step. So after you get your fence on there, you can wash and dry the number 6 and get ready for the next step. All right, so for the next step, I'm going to use my number 6 brush. I'm going to be doing the palm fronds. I will be using burnt sienna, green, white, and yellow. My dominant color is going to be green and rust. They're going to be like a nice deep tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with green and rust on my brush at the same time. And what I like to do is I kind of like to go fast on these. So I'm going to kind of pick my center points, and you'll see how this goes. I do my stems first, and then I come in and I wisp in the little leaves to the fronds. So here I go. I have green and rust on my brush at the same time. I pick somewhere where I want the center to be, and I'm going to go through and I'm adding all of these, in essence, kind of stems to the fronds. I'm going to do this on all of them. And if you feel like you want ones coming underneath here, you can certainly, or like hiding back here, you could certainly just poke like the top of a tree from behind there. Again, I'm just using the green and rust to begin here, and this is going to give me a good representation of these. And I like them to be super full, so that's why I'm really making a lot of stems in through here. Once I get that going, then I will, I'm going to do my bottom ones also. So this is going to be just kind of the first layer on all of them is going to be with that green and rust. And I'm not really paying too much attention to what's happening there because I already planned out where my trees were going to be. So now I'm just kind of following my roadmap that I've already put forth. So I'm going to do a little one in through here. And you can see I've got, you know, each one kind of goes in a different direction. Some have longer ones, some have shorter ones. But the burnt sienna really adds a nice natural color to it, and I'm seeing that out there, so that's why I'm definitely incorporating it. But green definitely works as a dominant color here, and I'm going to do that for my ones over here as well. And if I feel like I want to fill in any part in front of my or behind my fence, let's say I feel like there's maybe an area that's lacking in any kind of substance, like down here, you could certainly add little greenery coming forward, or whatever you want to do to fill in the space. There is a little bush back there, so you can really have fun with that part. And then I'm going to go back and do the little leaves. So I didn't wash my brush. I'm just going to use maybe some yellow, green, and white at this point to add brightness to it. And for my leaves, what I do is I concentrate on them coming off of the stem, in essence, for that particular palm frond. And gravity will take over. So you want them to kind of come off of that stem in kind of a downward motion. They don't all have to go down. You can certainly, on the other side, like the ones at the top, they are not all going to come down. But you definitely want to have some of them leaning down. You want to have some of that rust in there because that, again, adds that natural tone to it. And you don't have to put these little leaves on every single one, but you want to have that effect of these coming down. So the yellow and the white is going to add sunshine. So wherever you want some sunshine to come into place, you just add that right in there. And you can add, you know, little, I suppose you could add coconuts into the middle if you wanted to. I'm not seeing any coconuts out there, but you could certainly make this as creative as you want to. But again, that yellow and the green is really going to add, and the white is going to add that sunshine into it. I feel like I want to add like something in the middle of these just to give them that nucleus. So I just kind of dot it in the middle. And again, I'm just kind of going from that stem and pulling paint down and away from that stemmed part. And when you add that yellow and white, again, that's where the sunshine is going to start to appear in those trees. And don't forget these low-lying ones. So green, yellow, and white, any combination thereof, sprinkle in that rust every now and again. And you can see now how these are really coming to life. And I'm adding a lot of sunshine on here. I've got these cute little ones back here that I'm just going to add a little bit of these leaves. I don't even know if they're leaves or petals or what they are. I think I don't know. I'm going to have to look up the anatomy of a palm tree someday and figure this whole thing out. So I got some over here, and you can use these palm fronds to like kind of hide stuff. Like I've got kind of a wonky area right here, so I'm just going to put, maybe there's a little piece of the tree hanging over the edge of the house there. You can totally use these as, you know, as little disguises, you know, get them to hide part of the house. If you did part of the house and you're like, I'm not quite sure about that, you can totally use them to disguise things. And you really need to use the white. I can't emphasize that enough, because the white is going to, one, it's going to make these leaves not so see-through, so it adds great dimension to it. And two, it brings it to life. It adds that sunshine and the dimension to it. Without the white, it's just going to look drab and dark. So don't hesitate. You know, the more white, the merrier. And you can see I don't really stay on any one too long. I just I'm adding my colors and I'm moving on. So that way I don't really get lots of noises. That way I don't really get too hung up on any of them. As you're passing through the house part, if the yellow is fighting with the yellow behind it, just use more green and white. And then that way, those pieces will definitely stand out in front of the house. So again, if your leaves are not standing out in front of the house because of the yellow, just put more green and white on it, so that way you'll be able to see it. Or just white, because white will make it stand out as well. And then you can see this is coming to life here. I've got a couple more to kind of tackle over here. And then I will just see if I want to do any other little touch-ups to it. But again, I'm just kind of going through and making my little leaves on my trees. I'm pulling them out from that initial stem that I had. If I want to add anything down here, I can just kind of add some little grass or greenery or something down here. Fill in any spaces that I feel might need a little bit of information. I'm going to step back from it for a second, make sure I think I want to put a little bit of something in the middle. So I'm touching my brush in the black paint, and I'm just kind of giving myself a little nucleus in the center of some of these trees, just so it doesn't, it looks like there's a spot where they're coming out. I thought I was going to be able to hide that with my, with the way I was doing the trees, but I definitely just am adding a touch of black into the center just to give myself a little bit of a nucleus. And then I think I'm gonna call it. You could, you know, fiddle with it all you want, but we do have one little final step for every painting, and it's gonna be with that tiny brush that I had you get, the number 1. So you can get that ready for the last step. All right, so the last step to any painting is to sign it. So I'm gonna be signing mine in the bottom left. I'm gonna be using, I think I'm gonna use green and yellow on my small brush. And I usually sign it with my initials. You could sign it with your name, you could sign it with the date, you could sign it, you know, with whatever you want to. I like to use complementary colors, so that's why I chose the green and the yellow. And that's going to conclude this super cute, whimsical Key West cottage. So I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you love your painting, and I look forward to sipping and painting with you again.
Thanks for watching me in Key West, Florida. Truly a paint and pet-friendly destination where the atmosphere is exciting, the weather is perfect, and the scenery is gorgeous. And don't forget to join me as I paint and sip around the world.